There we go. Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for Girl Talk. We're excited. This is our first of many, and we're really looking forward to sharing with you. It's not just as well us talking to you, it's you talking back to us. So please feel free to send in questions and relating to the topic that we're covering. So we're excited. Give us a moment. Let's allow some other people to join on. And while they are doing that, those of you that may not know who I am Pastor Erica Goodman from the V2V Community Church.
My name is Sarah Jane Baker.
And I'm Danny Lancaster.
Welcome. So good to have you with us tonight. So we're excited. Want to talk about subjects, and I know us girls love to chat, and we love to chat about stuff. And you know, there's I've been doing retreats for many years now, and one of the things that stood out for me was on our retreats, the women would stay up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Do you remember that, Danny?
Yeah.
And they would just stay up till all hours, and just the need to have that conversation. And you may be a mother or somebody that's at home, and you don't get a chance to have real girl meaningful conversations with other girls. And especially with a lockdown, you're isolated from friends, you're isolated from meeting up with your girlfriends. So it's kind of hard because it's just you if you're on your own, or if you've got husband, children, everything else. So we want to take a moment to just come into your home and just have some girl talk. And if you're a guy, please don't log off. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
I promise.
All knowledge, and
Yes.
I think it's all that knowledge that you store in your bank, you store in your memory bank, because it's going to be relevant at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember, for example, going into menopause, and I was like, no one tells you about those things, and that's kind of one of the things we've been, we were discussing amongst ourselves, some of the taboo subjects that no one talks about. It's one of those subjects that your mother never prepared you for, and it's just one of those things that women go through.
Have we ever spoken about it?
No.
No.
Oh, well, we're having
So we're going to have this conversation right now.
live.
Well, we want to talk about some of the taboo subjects that
I'm just going to
women.
get Jerome to pass me my Bible and my prayer journal.
Yeah, so we're gonna be discussing real taboo topics that women go through, but it's not really spoken about, because we understand that, especially in particular cultures, a lot of things are just go unspoken, and as women we experience a lot. We go through so much, and a lot of times people suffer in silence, or they don't feel like they can, or if somebody that's going through something, you may feel like you don't know how to approach that subject, or it can feel a little bit like walking on eggshells around them. So we want to tackle some of those really real and taboo
and
topics.
Also, this is awesome way to interact as well. So if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to ask us, shoot it across. We've got it in front of us, so we'll see your questions come up. So we are looking at what you're saying as well. So just shoot us across any questions. So what do you think is one of the most taboo or unspoken topics around amongst women today? What would you say, Danny?
I know for me, an experience that I went through a few months ago was miscarriage. I think it's one of those topics that
For those people that might not know your story, do you just want to share a little bit about what happened?
Obviously we got married last year May. We're celebrating our 1-year anniversary in a few weeks, couple of weeks. We'll make it work. It's fine. We're supposed to go away, but never mind. And obviously just naturally, as a newly married couple, you obviously want to start a family. And I have a child already. He's 15, Ashley. And so for me, it was just a no-brainer. You just have children. And I had a really simple pregnancy with him, really easy birth, straightforward. So obviously we fell pregnant, I think, around August time. And in November, so I was 16 weeks when we actually miscarried. So it was quite a late miscarriage. And it's what they considered a silent miscarriage. Obviously I had no knowledge at all whatsoever about miscarriages. And it was just so overwhelming. And I think it was such a tough thing, and I think not just for myself, obviously I'm the one that physically felt everything, but I think for those around you and for the family and you know, it's just such a delicate subject. And I had so many ladies come up to me individually, you know, still so broken because they had experienced it. But I think because there's not that outlet and there's not that safe space to talk about it, I think a lot of women do suffer in silence. And there's really basic questions like, okay, what happens to my body after, you know, you lose a baby? And, you know.
Also, there's different stages of miscarriage. So obviously there's the early miscarriage where, you know, obviously your body almost, you know, rids your body of the...
I know, but I think whichever stage you're at, you still feel, because your body's actually...
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think that for the different stages, I think present different realities. Like, I think that the beginning stage where your body almost, you know, you naturally lose the baby is you know, obviously it's traumatic in itself, but I think being with you, Danny, in the hospital, I think that added a whole new trauma that I didn't know about. Like, I've never heard anyone speak about, you know, it's like, you know that people lose a baby, but like you don't actually, the reality of being there with you in that situation, it was incredibly traumatic. And I think that it is something that I think that as women you probably feel like, do I have a right to grieve this? Because, you know, when we think of baby, we think of, you know, obviously like if you lose a child, a physical child, you know, we can almost relate to that, but I think there is a certain detachment, especially with husbands, you know, until they're literally physically holding that baby. It's like they get it but they don't get it, I feel. After having 3, I think that it's usually their bonding starts happening once the child's there.
But I think that, you know, obviously I don't want to speak on behalf of Jerome, but I can only kind of speak with what we've talked about amongst ourselves is, you know, he did feel it, you know, and I think it's that, okay, how do I almost be a part of this, because I'm not the one that physically carried the child, and it's not like you can go to a burial and bury a baby. And I know it can almost, and I think that's the thing, it can almost sound like quite morbid, and it can almost be that thing where it's like,
do you have a right to grieve?
Yeah.
Like, how much do I have
and
a right
I knew
to
for
grieve?
me that I needed to have that process where I, you know, for me it was like, I didn't want it to just be, oh, this child never existed. So something that we done as a family was we had like a balloon release ceremony where we just acknowledged that this child actually, you know, was conceived and actually was a person. And I think for me there were so many opportunities to how I walked through it. You know, you have the opportunity to obviously grieve, and that can almost make you go into a depression state, and you really have to fight that. You really have to, you know, choose every day that I'm gonna actually live for those that are with me still now. So, you know, I've got a husband and a son that still need me present, you know, so I can't completely detach and like fall into this black hole of like sorrow and you know, grief. You have to still continue to live.
But I think the reason why it's unspoken is that what I was trying to suggest earlier is, you know, obviously I think if it was like you know, like your child was born or whatever, you almost like know how to, you know, you'll say, I'm so sorry for your loss or whatever. And I think even like being your sister, it was like, you know, there were certain things I wanted to do, like, you know, I wanted to buy you something as a keepsake, but then it's like, oh, do I, or does she just want to forget? You know, it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, and I was like, I'm just going to do it anyway, you know, and I got you the box and the teddy and stuff like that, and I'm like, do I put their name on, like, and I think it's one of those things, because it's unspoken, it's like, is this inappropriate, like, is this okay, does she want to remember, does she not want to remember? And I think that it's really important that we have these conversations, because a lot of people don't know what the right thing to do. Do I go up to you and say, I'm so sorry for your loss? Do I keep silent and just almost pretend like it never existed? And, you know, is one or the other like more appropriate? And I think it's really when we have open conversations that we're able to obviously navigate those thought processes.
Yeah, definitely. I know you went through it
multiple times.
I think for a lot of women there's different scenarios. I think because you'd gone so far into the pregnancy, there was that visible sign. But I think there are women that have the earliest stages of pregnancy where you know, men are not really don't think a lot of them have actually come to terms that you're actually expectant. And there are those women that are going through that stuff on their own. Yes, you've got a husband there, but he's not understanding what you're actually experiencing. So you're having to go through that in silence. And I know for me, up until I got saved, it was one of those things that just kept coming back. It was this emotional thing that every now and then you'd have these moments where you got depressed and you couldn't understand why, and you'd think about these babies that you lost. I had lost one through an ectopic pregnancy, and if you're watching and you've had that, and I know a lot of the times the doctors say, oh, you can't have any more after that. Well, I actually had 2 children after an ectopic, so even though the baby was growing in the fallopian tube and they removed that, you've still got another one, so you still can conceive. And so I'd lost one in that stage, and one was an actual miscarriage. And it wasn't until I got saved and I was having one of those moments, and God gave me this incredible encounter. It was like an out-of-body experience where Jesus took me to heaven, and in heaven he brought these 2 young men over, and if you want to know what they look like, just look at Dominic. They were tall. This was before I had Dominic. At that time I think I'd had 2 children, and so when I had this experience, these 2 young men came over to me, and they were looked in their 20s. So I'd had these miscarriages just a few years before. It was over different periods of time, but it wasn't long enough for them to have grown. So in heaven it was like they'd come to a place of maturity. And so they came over to me. Jesus introduced them, and I said, who are they? And he said, they're your sons. And, most of us, sometimes we have a miscarriage and we don't think of them as a person because they actually didn't come into the world. So our minds doesn't always have that logic. This was actually a person, because from the moment of conception, there's a spirit that has been allocated to that child that's in you, even when it's still the size of a pinhead. That's child in you. Doesn't matter the size of its body, has a human spirit. God doesn't give you a spirit when it comes out the womb. It has a spirit from the time of conception. So those children, there was created spirits that was inside of my body. So when I lost them, they went straight to heaven, as they do, because they're sinless, right? They've not committed sin, so they go straight back to heaven to be with the Father. And I'd lost, I think I'd lost one of them before I got saved. So that's reassuring for those of you that may have lost a baby and you were unsaved. Those children are with God and they're a real person. And it was a few years later, I was, which was a few years ago actually, I was watching that movie, that little boy that went to heaven. And he was talking about the story of where he met this little girl, and she said, I'm your sister. And it was, and he said, well, what's your name? And she said, I don't have one, because the mum and dad never allocated a name to them. So I remember Sarah was still living in Australia back then, and I just got everyone together. I said, well, we need to name them because we've not actually given them a name, and they're real. They may not have had a chance to live in this world. So I hope you're comforted by that, because that's not an experience just for me. This is for every person that has ever lost a child. And from that day, I've never grieved again. I've never felt sad about it, because it's that I know where they are, and I know that I'm going to meet them one day.
I think that's where my hope and my comfort and my peace came. Just knowing that he rests in the arms of Jesus, I think that is so amazing. That thought of there's no pain, there's no suffering, we don't understand why these things happen, but they do. And I think it's, you just trust God through it, and you just it just develops a strength in you, it develops a fight in you. And for me, I knew that this wasn't just for me, this isn't just my story, there's so many other people that this is your story, and you've never felt that you could talk about it or share it, or you may not know anybody else that's been through it, or felt like you could have that conversation. So that's why we really wanted to have this conversation tonight. And I just want to reach out to anybody that has experienced that feels like they need to still speak to somebody, because it's not just we really wanted to start the conversation. And we're here. You can email
and
in.
even if you're a husband or a brother, it's okay to talk. Because it's one of those subjects. It's like when somebody dies. It's like we don't know what to say around that person. Just be normal. Like any other thing they may be going through. If you knew I was going through anything else but those taboo subjects, you'd be like, are you okay? We would offer comfort, we'd send flowers, we would do stuff to cheer. Oh, let me take you out, cheer. That's still applicable to people who are going through things like that, because you need to come out, you need someone to be around you to can pull you out of that place before you, like Danny said, get sucked into that black hole, because it draws you in, because it's an emotion that you alone are facing, that no one else.
Surround yourself with people that have you. I know for me, I had amazing friends and incredible family that just got around us, and I think you need that in that time. Don't isolate yourself. Don't be an island. There's people that want to help. There's people that want to be in your corner. So don't isolate yourself. Don't be an island. And I think, everything you can get through it, you will get through it. And I know in that moment, it seemed like the most impossible thing. I remember when it just happened and they told us that they couldn't find a heartbeat, and there was actually a lady in the waiting room. She'd just lost twins, so she, she was just so broken. And in that moment, it seemed like the most incomprehensible thing that you could ever experience. But time is a healer, and it truly does. It truly heals, and you just have to keep on living and keep looking forward. There's much more to live for.
And as awful as a thing is, a lot of women go through this. It's not rare, it's quite common. And even some women, myself, I had 2, and I know of women that have had multiple miscarriages, but you don't camp there. And that's really important for us. A lot of the times we go through trauma and we squat and we camp there, and even though we look like we're carrying on with life, there's a part of us that camps there, and every quiet moment, every moment that you're still, you go back to that place that you camped. And I want to encourage you, that's not healthy. That is not a healthy place. It's some place, that's why burial is a closure, and it's somewhere in your heart you have to bury that moment. You have to pick yourself up, take off the black, and start wearing colour and go and get on with life again, because you'll get stuck. And that's what's dangerous. That's what's going to hinder you. That's what's going to change everything about you. You cannot afford, it doesn't matter whether it's this or any other traumatic event, none of us can afford to camp where we've been traumatized, whether it was as a child, you were traumatized, any abuse. And it's natural. The human flesh wants to I want to stay here because I'm scared, I'm scared to come out.
Have you ever read like a really good book? And it's like you stay up all night because you just want to get to the next chapter, the next chapter.
Left behind.
It's the equivalent when you stop somewhere. It's the equivalent of stopping in the middle of your story. Like God's not finished with your story yet. So whatever that traumatic thing might be, male or female, don't stop in the middle of your story. God's the most incredible, elaborate author, and I just imagine him painting all over my life, and I just want my life to be his greatest masterpiece, and I'm not going to limit that to my own really limited understanding of what I understand of this earth, that this is a season, this is a snapshot. I think Bishop Ulmer preached this the last time he was here. It's a snapshot in the whole spectrum of our life, and many people, because they can only see that snapshot, they live out of that snapshot. But if you can imagine your life as a story that is being written every single day, there's a new chapter being added, and if you stop in one moment and you haven't got all the way to the end, you're robbing yourself and everybody else of the beauty that God wants to do with your life story. So I just want to encourage you with that God's not done with you. There's so much ahead of you, there's so much in your story, and just hold on to that. Even those of you that are single and waiting, and it feels like, wow, like I remember when my fiance pretty much dumped me. There's no other pretty word for it. Like, I was dumped, guys, and you know, really humiliating. Like, the whole world knew that we were together.
Let's
like,
give context. She got engaged in front of the whole church. It was like 2,000 people.
Literally, he wrote a song, guys.
And played on the piano.
And played it on a piano. Can you imagine? If he's watching. Anyway. And yalla. And so he wrote me a song, played it on a piano.
Yeah, thank God you didn't camp.
But I did for a minute.
Yeah, but you moved on, otherwise you wouldn't be here where you are now.
Yeah, there would have been no Jason Baker.
There would have been no Mike.
They would have looked a bit different. But I, you know, for me, that's an easy place to be like, we're done. You know, like, I'm done. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about like what it looks like to choose the right person. But for me, that could have defined me.
Yeah.
That moment in time could have literally shaped my entire being, because when someone cheats on you, someone remembers. Thanks, guys. It's good to know that your memory's still there. I even remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a wrap dress with purple.
Let it
go. And well, it's a public dumping, isn't it? And so you just got to get on with it. I'm saying this to someone to say, like, we laugh now, but like,
pick yourself up, girl. Dust yourself
because what God has for you. We're talking about the whole story.
It's either he cheats on you while you're dating, or he cheats on you when you're married.
Well, this is what
if that's
I'm saying.
in him, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
Isn't it better to happen before you marry him?
Exactly. And then, and so anyway, dumps me. Let's get past the dumping part. And you guys want me to stay there.
We kept there.
Yeah, we're not camping there, guys. We're talking about not camping.
Yeah, but they're like, I want to go get my ice cream.
Don't do that. Don't
get that over again. Don't eat.
Do you know what? Coming back strong, girls.
Listen, make him know it is.
Like, let him know that.
You know, I said that to your dad. I said, if any time. I said, just so you know. I said, any time you lost your mind and you want to leave me, I said, I will.
I'm gonna. My A game is gonna be so strong.
I will
if you
be.
ever. My A game is gonna be hard.
I said, when you see me, your mouth will drop open because I'm not going down. I'm going up. And when you see me, it'll be all of this, and you can't touch anymore.
You're gonna cry. So, let me finish my story.
You better know what you lost.
You're gonna do it. We're going past the dumping part now, and we're gonna get to the moral of the story. So anyway, we got past the fact that I was dumped, and in that moment, obviously, there was so much, because when someone cheats on you, it's such a robbing of yourself. Like, was it me? Is it because I wasn't like this? Is it because I wasn't like that? Blah blah blah. What does that mean for me? And so I was single for 6 years. And that singleness was it felt like a really prolonged period. I didn't know whether that was it, like, especially when you meet the person, you've got engaged. Have I now missed it? When you say yes to someone and you believe that this is God's best for you, and they change their mind on you, does that mean now, like, you're out of the game because of their choices? And there's a lot of different things, and in that season I really had to allow myself to be rewritten by God, and rewritten in terms of who God said I was. And I just wanted to encourage you with that, because I allowed God to rewrite me, and not somebody else, and not a situation. What ended up happening is he made something so beautiful of my life. And now that reality is so far removed from my reality. Like, it's so like it's like night and day. And he brought me somebody what I thought was so right for me in that season. Now looking back with hindsight, I know that there were so many triggers that let me know it wasn't my gift from God. It was an Ishmael, it wasn't an Isaac. And because I allowed God the permission in to mend my heart, because I didn't become bitter, because I didn't allow unforgiveness to breed, because that's I could have gone so many different directions. Like, we presume that people are gonna have their heart broken and they're just going to fix themselves after a while. But a lot of women, I'm speaking to someone today, because I can feel you pulling on my spirit. I'm speaking to somebody today, a lot of women allow themselves to camp in a broken place, and that's not where God lives. God lives on the mountaintops. God lives in the beauty of everything, and if you don't allow yourself to be rewritten, God won't. He will leave you till you're ready. He's a gentleman. Yeah. And I had to allow God to come in and rewrite me. And because I allowed him to, I now have an incredible husband who eclipsed the other dude. And and I have 3 amazing children. And now that is so far removed from who I was. Like, I'm a completely different person from that time. But I had to give God permission to do that. So I just wanted to encourage you. We're going to talk a little bit about what we did look for when we were looking for someone. But I just wanted to encourage you with that. Do you guys want to add anything?
Well, that's the thing. I want to, obviously, I think in that single state, you don't really know what you want or what you need for your life. And I think there's a big difference between what you want and what you actually need, and God's in the business of giving you what you need rather than what you want. So some of you need to throw that list and scrumple it up and throw it away and start a new list, because don't put a ceiling on God, don't put limitations on God, because you may have this profile of a man or woman, men, you may have that in your mind of what you think a man or a woman should be for you, and learn to tune into what God wants for your life, because that's when it makes the difference, because marriage is not like a walk in the park every day. Like, I mean, I'm only 1 year in, but gosh, like, there's moments.
Every day is not Christmas.
Where you're like, wow, this is a lot.
I just want to cornflakes to go to bed.
Literally, my husband likes to eat at like all crazy hours of the night.
Go to sleep.
Like last night, I was tired, but he's hungry, and I'm like,
doing toast.
Jerome toast. No. But I'm saying that it's so much of, you have to die to yourself every day. You don't get to be just do what you want. There's somebody else that you're responsible for and that you're doing life with, and that you're sharing life with. So let's talk a little bit about, because a lot of women don't know what to look for in a man, and they have put these limitations on themselves. And some of them, I think, are just, they don't even know that they have. I think sometimes you pick up things along the way, or you speak to different people, and you almost take on other people's interpretation of what a good husband should be. I think
but that might not be for you.
Exactly, and I think you really need to know yourself and what God wants for you first. So let's just dive into that a little bit. Like, what is Sarah, we'll start with you. Like, what is your... or what was your list based on who you know of Jason now? Because I know the Jason that you married in 2011 is not the Jason that he is today. And that's a whole other thing about potential. So let's talk about, obviously, what drew you to Jason, and what were the things that you were looking for in a husband?
Okay. To be honest, I wasn't looking. That's the first thing. I really had kind of got to the point where I was living my best single life, if I'm honest. I was living my best single life. Remember we used to like spin the globe and then like put our finger on it, and wherever our finger landed, that's where we would go next. Like, that's the kind of life I was living. Just got to a place of contentment. But then I think that what I started realizing or seeing is the desire to have children never kind of would leave. And then I remember one day I was working for Mac in Selfridges, Mac Cosmetics in Selfridges, and I came outside and it was really late. I think it was around Christmas, and I came outside and I had to walk to the station. It was raining, and all these people like being picked up by their spouses and their whoever's, and I just started crying because I was like, I was so bad. And it was like, I realised that I had kind of been in robotic mode, like work mode, doing things, travelling, doing whatever, but I had been ignoring the desire that was really deep in my heart. And I think that it was only then that I realised, you know what, I'm actually quite lonely. And I watched everybody else kind of in their own like little zones, and I think that it started with a desire to be with somebody. And then when I acknowledged that, and I think it was January, and you know how you write down your prayer requests, and it was a Wednesday night, And Pastor Douglas had told everyone to come to the front. He said, just shout out what it is that you're believing God. There's an anointing there, whatever. I remember I shouted out, like, God, I want, like, to meet whoever. And I was so mad at myself because I was like, Sarah, why did you ask that? Like, you could have asked for anything else. Why did you ask that? And because but it was what was the desire of my heart, which I didn't know. I think because I'd experienced so much pain, it was easier to not even want it, because if I wanted it, then that meant that I had to face the possibility of not having it. And so it's easier just to pretend like you're okay and you don't want this and you don't need this and it's not something you want. You're good, like you're powerful, girl power, like, and it's just not that's not what was the true reflection of my heart. But because I'd experienced so much heartache and so much pain, I was like, me and Jesus are good, like we can do this thing. And that was the first point. And when I started acknowledging that, I was like, okay, I didn't really know, to be honest, because I was so confused, because the guy that I'd been engaged to was what I thought ticked all the boxes. He had swagger for days. I love when guys dress really nice, so that was on my list.
So shallow in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, like, sorry guys, I know you're gonna say like some super spiritual. Like, I really like guys when they smell nice and they look nice, like a good watch, good shoes. Like, that's really like a good look. Like a David Beckham kind of style. And so I was like, to be a bit more specific. And so then I was like, I knew that that's what I like, but then I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't go for anything that I liked, because clearly that didn't work out for me. And so I was just really confused. And so I started seeing, I mean, if you want to call it dating, we didn't really date. We just went to the movies a few times or whatever. But I started seeing, from what I could see, I saw what I didn't want. So the person that I had been acknowledging or allowing to court me or whatever it was, I saw a possessiveness, I saw a lot of insecurities, really bad eating habits. I know that sounds really silly, but I don't really like unhealthy lifestyles, and I don't like overweight men. So I'm just being real. And so I was like, and trust was a huge thing, because remember, someone had cheated on me. So Johnny's just silly. So I was like, you know what, I know that I need to feel safe. And so I didn't really know. And it was really like, when I met Jason, it was really the peace. It wasn't necessarily a list. It was just, I couldn't control it. I couldn't stop it. Like, literally, it felt like a horse that bolted, and I was like desperately trying to gain control. And the more I tried to gain control, the less I could. And there was just this incredible peace. It's like you just knew instantly, this is the person you're going to marry. And that completely freaked me out, because I'm like, I don't want to be that girl that's like cutting out wedding pictures like a month in. Like, that's weird. But like, I felt like that girl. Like, I knew that this was the person I was going to marry. So it wasn't really a list for me. It was just literally a peace that God gave me, and really admitting that I wanted this. What about you?
I think
do you remember?
Cast your mind back.
Cast my mind back to was it 46 years ago nearly. It's a long time. But I knew, even as 17, I was 17 when I met him. At 17, I knew that I didn't want to, I had certain, I wasn't Christian, but I had certain principles in my life. So the first time I met him, we were at a mutual friend's baby dedication, baby christening. And I saw him with this little boy who's about 2 years old. And even though there was an initial attraction, I just immediately dismissed that, because as far as I was concerned, I was never going to get involved with somebody that was in a relationship. And, at 17, no one's married, was in that courtship. But I thought, oh, this guy's got a child and that's it. I'd shut that down. And it took him about 3 months of phoning around, trying to find different people, because I refused to speak to him. I wasn't even going to open that door. So I was looking for somebody that was not involved with other people. And I think that's really an important thing for us to look at when we're looking for a guy. What's his involvement in his relationships with other women? Because, what he brings in comes with him. And so that was really important for me. I wasn't prepared to get into some tangle of relationships and all that drama. So for me, if that's something that you don't mind, that wasn't for me. So he had to be somebody that was completely detached. He didn't have, so when we started dating, there wasn't any, the only women that were in his life that he was attached to was his mother and his sister. He would, until he met me, he would, and I love that about him because,
I have a question.
what was that?
Because obviously you were saved when you met Dad.
Unsaved,
sorry.
yes.
But did you know, like, as an unsaved person, like, obviously I was a Christian, Danny was a Christian when we met our spouses, so obviously, like, you know, we have that peace. Did you know, like, this was your someone?
Yeah, we did.
How did you know? Like, what do you feel as an unsaved person?
It just, like, I think for him, I mean, he said it was different. For me, it was different. It suddenly got serious. Because it was like you're just kids and you know, just having fun, and then it's like somebody gets your attention and it's like all the joke goes out the window, and for a moment it's like, okay, this is like, and it was scary. It was scary. It was really frightening because I mean, like most girls, you know, you're drawing, you know, if there's a guy you liked, whether it's somebody in school, you would put your name and put their surname because you know, all girls dream about getting married.
What was that one they used to do? Yeah.
And then, you know, so we all have that within us somewhere, if we're honest, deep down, and sometimes we push it away because we think, oh, it's not going to happen for me, so there's no point me, so I'm going to put that in the bottom drawer. But I think when he came in, it was that serious, and just the way he took charge, he was so different. Even though he was only 18 when I met him, he was so mature. When I look at 18-year-olds today, they're not like him. He was so mature, and he could drive. He had a car. He made steps, and you know, none of it was prompted. He's like, he knew what he wanted, and I love that about a man, because for me that's the way forward. If he can't make a decision, come on, girls. If he can't make a decision at that stage, he's not going to make decisions further on. No, but that decision making is really important, because I saw somebody that knew what he wanted, and he went straight.
None of this faffing around.
He went straight out to make it happen.
Can I just flip the script a little bit? Because sometimes men do make the moves, and they do make their intentions very known. It's women that play the games. And I think that you know, because we can't also just put all the blame on men.
No,
you know, because there are some men that do really take the step. They do take the step to ask you out, to try and court you, to try and date you. But I think as women, we also can't be so stush and think that we're the greatest thing, because you know, at the end of the day, we're the ones that's the greater population.
But then, let's balance it, because then you've got some that have got no standards. Let's just
no, of course not. But I think if a guy is, and I know that, for example, in church there are guys that are genuinely nice guys. Okay, they might physically not be everything that you maybe thought that they would be, or they may not have all the money and all, you know, the car and the house and everything. But you have to also allow for potential. You have to allow
that's what's unrealistic with that generation.
I think all of us can testify that none of our spouses had.
No, they hadn't made it. No way.
And that's what I think we were talking about this in the marriage seminar, where, you know, the singles look at where we are today, and they think, well, you know, like if it's a single woman, I want a husband just like Pastor Douglas. He wasn't always like that. That was a work in progress. This is 45 years in the making. We went through many rough patches, you know. We had lots of fights in the early stages, because my temper was up there, his was up there, and sparks flew. And it took a moment, and it was that iron sharpeneth iron. And even as an unsaved, by the time we hit 7 years, we were like, you know what? I said, I'm done. I'm finished. I want out. I don't want to do this anymore, because that's the reality. But it wasn't where you see it today. And so you can't look for that perfection. And it's unfair for us to look for perfection or that perfect man when we're so imperfect ourselves.
And don't expect a man to give you what you're not willing to give yourself.
Absolutely.
I think it's unrealistic, and it's not fair to think that he's going to now be your sugar daddy. You know, I'm going to give you all the things in this world when you are not even willing. You want £600 pair of shoes, but you won't even go and buy them for yourself. So, you know, don't have that expectation on a man. You're not a man. Is not your bank account. It's not your bank.
They shop in office.
You want to go to Primark and buy shoes.
They start dating. No, hold on. They start dating a guy, and they want to go to Louboutin. Because.
You didn't know about Louboutin.
But you never went to Louboutin.
By the way, Louboutin shoes are really uncomfortable.
They are uncomfortable. Forget the red sole. I've got got tons of them parked up in my room. I'm thinking about giving them away. I know you're going to message now if you're size 5, but they are the most painful shoes. Literally, if you manage to make it to a restaurant, as soon as you sit down there, if you looked under the table, you see every woman with their Louboutins kicked off underneath.
They're painful.
They are
painful.
painful.
Be disabled for the rest of your life.
But you look for a potential, look for a man that can make decisions. That was important for me, because if he's going to lead me and lead our family, he's got to be a decision maker. He's got to be a risk taker. And my husband, without any promptings from me or any pressure, in fact, he was leading. This is what we're going to do. And he took the initial step. He went and saw my dad, which I was really shocked. I thought that was really bold. That he would, because my dad was pretty terrifying back in the day, and we're kids, and my dad would have chased you out of the house. So I'm at the top of the stairs with my mum, and I'm waiting for my dad to shout at him, and so I'm listening, waiting for something to happen. And he went and told my dad, I want to marry your daughter, can I have your permission? And he went and sold his car. He sold his car to contribute towards the wedding. And for me, those were like tick, 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 because I know if he values me that much and he wants me that much, and that's really important. I think the essence of that scripture where it says, he that finds a wife, that man's got to want you. If you're the one that's making him want you, he's got to want you, that he's willing to sell his car.
No,
you know what it is for a guy at 17 to sell his car.
But do you know what I see with this generation now, which grieves me, is we almost shortcut the men because we're so busy trying to do the work for them. Let him work for you. Like Jason worked 2 jobs to pay for my ring, so that he could get me a decent ring. It wasn't a graph ring, guys, but it's a nice ring that I was really happy with. But he worked 2 jobs. He worked in a surf shop and he worked his regular job just so he could provide something amazing. And if I'd be like, no, don't worry about that, don't worry, no, like, let him be a man, like, let him work, like, let him work to woo you, like, give him an opportunity to be a man. Because sometimes what I see now, I'm just like, did I miss something? Was there a memo that went around to all women that I missed? Like, we're running behind men, and we're shortcutting what their purpose is. They are purpose to pursue you, girls. So allow them to pursue you. And 5 years is not pursuit anymore. Sorry, can I just say this? If it's 5 years, that's not called pursuit anymore. No. We're just doing science, but it's not pursuit. If he's pursuing you still after 5 years, no, it doesn't take a man that long to decide that you're the one.
Yeah, so
and a real man,
it's a decision maker.
Okay,
yes,
quickly.
What's yours?
I'm the most recent,
so how are we doing for time?
I'll just be really quick. I think for me, I had to first of all acknowledge, like, I think it was Sarah that said, had to acknowledge that actually this was something that I wanted to do, because I think you can talk yourself out of wanting marriage because you don't want to fear that disappointment of it not happening for you. And I think a lot of single girls that are probably 30s, or if something you've been believing for a long time, you can almost like psych yourself out of it because it's easier for me to just acknowledge that you know what, I'm okay being by myself. But it's actually because it's a defense, because you don't want to, you don't want that disappointment of actually it not happening, and I think for myself it was first of all acknowledging that yes, this is something that I decided, it's something that I wanted, and just positioning myself to receive it when it came, and obviously I have Ashley, so one of the main things was for me was somebody that could step in and actually play a father role in his life. He never had apart from my dad, who was his granddad, but he done an amazing job of filling that father role, but it wasn't his dad. And I understood that he needed somebody in his life that could motivate him, that could be that man that he could look up to, and just somebody that was so God-fearing, because honestly, marriage is no joke, and you need somebody that can hit the floor with on their knees
male and female,
and pray, because listen, when you both decide to have a crazy moment, you need somebody that's actually going to stand and fight for your marriage.
But also, don't you think that what is underrated or what's not spoken about enough is the importance of the heart?
Yeah.
Especially in church. It's like, well, I just want someone that loves God.
Listen,
but
test the heart. Yeah, test the heart.
Because, but can I just, like, smash that myth to the ground that if someone's in church it makes them a good person.
Not at all.
Like, far from it. The most evil people I've ever met are in church. So don't make that your criteria. Watch for things like, is he kind? Is he or she, if men are watching, like, are they kind? Like, are they spiteful? Like, are they super angry?
Do they lack patience?
Yeah, like, when how you go out to a restaurant, children? How do they speak to other, like, you know, people that are serving them, and you know, like, do they run ahead of you and like the door's like hitting you in the face like as you're walking through, like, do you know what I mean? And I think that it's separating,
and
like,
you can pick those things up really early, because I mean we'd started dating in December, and by April the next year we were married. And I know it was really short, but we knew what we wanted, and there wasn't any point in making it last for another year or two, because nothing else was going to change. We weren't going to change our minds, and that's what we wanted. And 45 going on 46 years later, we know we made the right decision. But all of these things, I saw this in those brief short moments. It was like he would never, just in the courtship, I remember him before there was a season when he didn't have his car for a moment. I can't remember if it's because he'd sold it back then, but he would walk me to the door and he would wait at the gate till I'd gone inside and locked the door back. He didn't call me to tell me, meet me anywhere. He came, the first date we went on, he actually came in and introduced himself to my mum and dad so that they would know who I was going to be with, and so that they would give it, you know, just those considerate things, the things that he would do for his mum. So there's a lot of things that we can pick up, but the heart, girls, is so important, and men, because the heart of a woman, the heart of a man, because I've seen it in church. I've been in church and people look lovely on the outside, and as soon as something happens, the devils that come up out of those Christians is frightening. And God forbid you married somebody that looks lovely on the outside, and as soon as you hit a bump in the road, this devil rises up, and you're thinking, who did I marry? Where did that come from?
See them around their family. See them around their
correction. I think.
Yes.
When you say to them, "Hey, babe, like, I didn't like
do
it
that
the
on
way
purpose.
You did that. Like,
do it on purpose.
I didn't like the way you said that. Like, or that wasn't cool. Like when we were out and you did that." Because there's no such thing as perfect. There's no such thing as the perfect man or the perfect woman.
But isn't that something people don't do when they're dating? Because we just don't want to.
No, I do.
Yeah. Well, most people don't. You know, you don't want to say something that's going to upset them, so we keep it in. Do it on purpose. Yeah. Because you want to see what manifests.
But not to provoke.
Not to provoke, but it's like no, but it's like what Pastor Chuck said. You know, this coronavirus didn't bring fear to us; it revealed fear in us. And you know, all it is, you want what's in a person to be revealed, so that you can see the tip of the iceberg. Because if you can see what's in there, and for example, if you correct them on something, if they go down into sulk and meltdown,
bite your head off, or they do tit for tat. So like you say something like, "Well, you're not even all that yourself," like flag, you know. And I think that you've just got to watch for the heart, because for me, everything's subject to change if the heart's right. And if your heart's right and your heart is towards God, because obviously, like, we didn't say that, but obviously it goes without saying that they need to be a God-fearing man or woman. So if their heart's right, God can work with a heart. Like, how many of you have ever said something or done something, and then because of the Holy Spirit you get convicted, you're like, oh, like, shouldn't have said that, that was so out of order. So, and I think, like, let's just not get caught up in this Instagram reality where, you know, we're following all these Instagram fabulous couples and, you know, all these Instagram fabulous lives, and we're now trying to be that. Like, listen, you know what, if my marriage is in trouble, I'm gonna go find someone and get some help. I'm not gonna sit there in my depression and my strife and my whatever, and for the sake of my Instagram fabulousness, wait till literally we're on the brink of divorce, and then it's like, oh, so and so got divorced. What? Like, no, like, let's get rid of this whole Instagram facade life where we feel like we've got to give off this image of perfection, and let's get real before God, before ourselves, before our spiritual heads. And if there's something wrong, if there's something that needs fixing, you know, we can upload all day. I love a post that Apache done the other day. She's got this amazing brand called Bixie Pots, plug for Bixie Pots, and And she posted this amazing shot of her like holding the thing, and then on her page she posted this picture of Zachary and Zara next to her. Nothing like the shot that she just posted. She was like Instagram versus reality, and that's so real. Like you could look at that one shot from Bixie Potts and be like, wow, this is like amazing. But then Apache showing you the other side behind the camera with her 2 kids. I think they were playing some kind of iPad, which she probably tried to keep them quiet while she gets this shot. And that's the reality, like Instagram versus reality. What you're seeing and what's actually real are 2 very different things. So it's really important that we find God's standard.
But I think it's so dangerous to get caught up in that whole Instagram standard. I think that there's so many people, especially in this generation, that they end up getting themselves into debt, trying to have the biggest wedding, trying to have the next best wedding, you know, and they have special shots so that they can get picked up on Instagram by Bella Nigel weddings or whatever it is, you know, and you're not actually doing it for yourself.
Spend the next 10 years trying
exactly,
to
you're not actually doing it for yourself. And I think in everything that we post,
that's the word right there. You're not actually doing it for yourself.
But I think I'm not the biggest poster of anything on social media. Like I rarely.
Listen, if you follow my page,
like if it's
anniversaries,
literally
every once in a
that's
while,
me.
like, I love you, Jason post.
But it's not that my life is not happening. Like my life is very full and I'm very happy and I'm very content. It's just I don't feel like I need to share everything with the world because A, it's nobody's business, but B, I have nothing to prove, you know. And I think it's, don't get caught up in you know, everyone's getting married because everyone's posting this picture perfect life and everyone's having this picture perfect family and these amazing children and everyone's like matching outfits and, you know, all of this stuff. I think, you know, that's not real life.
And don't get yourself into debt trying to follow what someone else is doing. We're going to take a couple of questions before we close. If you've got any questions, shoot them now because we've got literally like 8 minutes left. But it says, can we have red, amber and green flags? In other words, can red flags be rated? If it's a flag, like flags are there for a reason. You know, like I wouldn't start trying to color code them. I would just literally, if it's a flag,
it's a danger,
it's usually a sign of a lack of peace.
But I think also have somebody, find somebody or a couple that you can be accountable to. Somebody that's actually, you know, has a successful marriage, not like your mate that's just got married, been married just a few months. Like have somebody that's sound and is godly counsel that you can seek, because sometimes we don't see things, or sometimes if we've come from a background that maybe that was normal, we don't know necessarily if it's a red flag.
I think that let's define what a flag is. Because there's a difference between something that is unlearnt that needs to be learnt. So for example, my husband is Caucasian, he's part Italian, part Australian. There's a lot of things in my culture that is very different to his culture. So there were certain things, he grew up in a broken home, not a Christian home. I grew up in they've been married for 45 years and obviously very much together, Christian home, like everyone's Christian, like we don't even play secular music. And then, so we were coming from 2 very different, so there's a difference between unlearned behaviour where, okay, this is something we're going to have to like learn together, to that doesn't sit right. And when I say flag, I'm talking about where it just,
it's a niggle.
It's a niggle, like I don't know if I could live with this. I told you about the guy that I was dating.
It's almost like a patchy jumper where you feel like you keep having to mend the holes. If you're having to mend the holes,
don't justify their behaviour.
And I'll give you a quick example. Like the guy that I was dating, I'd hurt myself or something. He had to drive my car or something, and I always have brought my own cars. I had a BMW, and it was very different to the car he drove, and the way he drove my car, it was like a pride that came over him, where for me it was just a car, and that was like a quick red flag, because I was like, ooh, look, what's this? I haven't seen this before. Like it was a sense of pride and almost like arrogance, and like he just changed in the way that he behaved. Like if I ever corrected him or ever said anything, he'd be real spiteful, and you know, I never got to see the fullness of that. It was just like a tiny little sign that I saw, but because I was looking to observe, I was able to see, whoa, like that looks like it's going to get a whole lot bigger. And so for me, I was like, that's not something I'm happy to live with for the rest of my life. I don't want to live with someone that's spiteful or obnoxious or inconsiderate. So I think you need to know what you can live with, and if there's a flag, check it out and explore it completely.
But for the sake of time, flags are tips of icebergs, and remember, iceberg is just a little bit of what's really underneath. So what we perceive as a flag, recognize there's much more underneath.
And someone asked as well if heaven is real. 100%. It's more real than the earth that we're living on. And if you don't know that, then you need to know it real quick, because that's our eternal destination. So yeah, you definitely need to know that. Have we got any more questions? That was it. All right, guys.
Well, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it tonight. If you did, email us, let us know how much you enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts on it.
Any topics that you'd like us to cover next time.
I was thinking of menopause, because I know that's another taboo subject. But if there's any other topics,
men or women,
men and women, that would be great, and we can talk about them. And so email us at v2vchurch@aol.co.uk. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, perfect. And we just wanted...
don't forget as well, tomorrow morning, 7:30, we have morning worship. Tomorrow's Friday, and then tomorrow evening... tomorrow afternoon. Nearly forgot that. Jerome's like prompting. Don't
forget cookery.
We have our cookery, live cookery show. I hope you've got your ingredients.
You haven't run out to the shop in the morning.
That's the perfect time, because we're literally cooking live, so you'll be able to cook along with me. Set up your phone so that you can watch and you can do it. We're going to do it stage by stage. Prep all your measurements out so we can just go straight into the cooking.
And if they don't have a paella pan, what can they use instead?
You need a wok, something fairly deep, but you don't want a pot, because with paella it needs to be in a shallow, so you don't want anything that's deep, otherwise the bottom's going to go soggy and it's just going to ruin. So you need either like a wok or a deep frying pan or a paella pan.
And I just wanted to share really quickly, for all of you that are married, single, whatever, like the secret to our marriages and our life: get yourself a prayer journal and start to confess and speak out what it is that you want to see manifest in your life. When you want to see that manifest in your life, it will happen. So I encourage you guys to really start. What you do is you basically get a notepad or something like that. You write out scriptures, but translate that back to confessions. Bring that and put that into your life. Speak it over your unsafe family members. Speak it over yourself. Speak it over your marriages. I had my children in here way before they were ever born. That's how I knew Ezra was going to be Ezra. He's been in my prayer journal for 6 years. So I just wanted to encourage you that with that quickly. For those of you that are struggling and you're like, you know what, like, I'm not seeing light at the end of this tunnel. Get journaling, start speaking out, call those things that be not as though they are. There's so much power in the spoken word. And as women, men, I know you're watching, but as women, you have so much power to speak out and change your atmospheres. Absolutely. Men, you also do. So I encourage you guys to really start journaling, start speaking out what you want to see manifest.
And also, if you're watching by YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, so that you never ever miss any updates or videos.
I hope you've enjoyed it, our girl talk. So I hope you've enjoyed it.
Shall we tell them the rest of the schedule for the week, just on Sunday? So tomorrow, obviously, Pastor Erica's covered. Saturday, we have our parenting workshop.
Raising the godly
at 8:30 p.m. And then obviously Sunday, we have our 11 a.m. service. So don't forget to tune in.
See you then, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night.